the one way that they can do that is by mirroring their competition to things that they know. So Don Garber also was hinting at the idea that there were thoughts and conversations about once again changing the competition format of MLS now that we've expanded to 30 teams. He specifically cited yet again more playoff changes because what is MLS without every third year change in playoff structure? If they were to make those changes, John, how would you want the playoffs to actually look? Your ideal playoff scenario. What do you got?
All right, this is gonna sound crazy. I think we should only play in the East and only play in the West all year, and then the playoffs are East versus West.
Ooh, I
I think
like it.
we get to 16 teams in East Division and West Division. Then that's 30 games per season, home and away. That solves the whole fairness situation. At the end of that, you go into playoffs and you play your opposite number. So, eight on the East plays eight on the West, and so forth. And you dwindle down, or however you want to do it. Maybe that's unfair. But yeah, I just think it would be more exciting, in my opinion, to kind of have that. Okay, now the playoffs are coming. We're gonna play another side. Eventually, you might end up even an MLS Cup final that might be two Eastern teams. It might end up that way, if you did it that way. However, but I kind of think that there's some unfairness with the way they do it now and the fact that you just don't have a traditional league system where you play the same teams in your division home and away to end up with a more even table. So I would kind of use this opportunity to fix that. But I know there's some other crazy ideas floating out there of mixing things like MLS and NFL style playoffs, which I don't super like.
Hey, John, can you get your screen mirror off of my computer and stop taking all my thoughts? Because I had a really big, drop the mic moment that you just stole from me. So I appreciate it.
My
Thank
bad. Sorry.
No, I'm
you
so
gotta
glad
remember
you did
that
that.
you're on our show. Yeah, I'm supposed to be the one with the big take. I'm just
This is
kidding.
what I do every week,
Sorry.
John.
I didn't realize this was a big take. I thought everybody had this take.
Connor does this to me weekly, and he is just rolling around in his chair right now, smiling because he finally isn't the one who's doing it. Connor, your thoughts on the playoff changes? How would you like to see it change and be improved?
I think I might be coming in with the hot take here, but I actually like the playoff structure that they have right now. Maybe the only thing I would be open to in terms of a switch is I don't really care as much for the play-in game. I mean I get it because it keeps more teams alive later on in the season, but if you got rid of it, I'm not losing sleep over it. The reason I kind of like the playoff structure is I kind of like the best of three at the start because I think, and obviously this wasn't the case last year in the playoffs, but I do feel like you get in a best of three, you're more likely to get the better team to come out of that situation than you would in just a one off. Like somebody could just have a bad game, but in a best of three, you could still recover from that. After that point, I like the one off games. I think that's something that makes the NFL playoffs really good. I think it's something that makes March Madness as fun as it does. And I think back to the game of Cincy playing Columbus and that game being as intense and as good as it was, it would not feel nearly as much of that if you knew you had another game the next day after, no matter what. So I think I really like the one-off games. I would like to see that stay, as much as it's not necessarily like, oh, we're 100% getting the best team. I mean, I think that's where you get your supporter shield from. Like that's your best team across 34 games. But I like the one-off. Give me the fun, dramatic games at the end of the season to just go for the cup. I don't need some like NBA best of seven series every single round. Just give me one-off games. Give me the drama. I'm here for it. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, I too have always said that 2024 New York Red Bull were the clear favorites over the Columbus Crew. I've always believed that they were better. But you were right.
That's
It
why I
doesn't
said with the
happen.
exception of the last
Right.
playoff.
It doesn't happen all the time, right? Miami should have walked Atlanta just like
All
every
right.
team walked Atlanta. I disagree with you. I like the get best of three series. It's unique, it's different, but I don't need it to be super happy. Like if you got rid of it and just made it one outs all the way through, as you say, I'm not losing sleep over it. I don't care for the. I like that the game threes can get really intense, but I don't really care. Like that level of intensity in game three, you get in one offs. You get in home and away structures. You get in every other thing. You don't need 3 games to get there. Is kind of where I've always landed on that. It's cool. Like it gives good stories. I just don't need it. And my other thing is we got to stop with these 67% of the league makes the playoffs. I'm sorry, I'm overseeing a ninth place Atlanta get in, and no disrespect because my seventh place Red Bull made it to MLS Cup. Why?
I feel like there is a lot of disrespect, and you didn't have to call out Atlanta specifically.
You know damn well I
Could have
had to
said
call out Atlanta
you could have said
specifically.
Sporting KC. Like there's other choices you could have made.
Yeah, but I don't care about Sporting KC. I care about making you feel uncomfortable. So,
I
um,
love that you care about Atlanta.
um,
I think a
the
lot of the reason they have that 3 game playoff, right, is
mhm,
because of the fact that they have that 2 week window for the international break
mhm,
that's in the middle of the play. I think they just added games to make money and like buy time. So I think that could go away. Like obviously all this like depends on the schedule change and the change the playoffs as well. But I'm with Connor. Like for me, it's 1 game. Like 1 game, do or die. That's what cup soccer is. It's
mhm.
not 3 games. It feels too much like baseball for me, Andrew. I mean, call me a
Yeah,
soccer purist, but it feels too much like a baseball situation.
yeah, I completely agree, and it's something that I just don't need. Like I don't hate it, I don't love it, I just don't need it. Like if you got rid of it, I don't care. But what I do want to see is stop making this, you know, 9 teams in the playoffs and play-ins and all this sort of stuff. If you want to do it, give me the top six like we used to. Give a bye to the top 2 teams in each division, a wild card round for those 2 teams, and then they move on and they play the top of the top. I know John, you were saying kind of not like the NFL, but that would be very NFL like. But we,
I
we
was
talk
sort of
about
saying more like the NFL divisions. That's what I don't want.
well, we're gonna get to that in a second.
Yeah, that's a different thing.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that in a second. But to me, the idea was, oh, they wanted to put as many teams in there so they can get as many games and keep teams alive and stuff. Well, we're in Leagues Cup right now, and they made it such that 8 out of 36 teams make the final round. 4 out of 18 from each conference. They're not afraid to cut it down. Like clearly, there's not a level where it's like, oh man, we have to hit this many to keep interest. They'll cut it to whatever they need to cut it to make it interesting. So I don't think that they're terribly afraid of that. But let's transition then into this idea of divisions because one of the other things that kind of came out online was that there were these conversations that MLS chatted about divisions, and that was one of the reasons, John, why I was very interested to bring you on for this. I know outside of the schedule change, you had some strong opinions on divisions and conferences as well. So why don't you jump into this idea of like if they were going to divisions, yay, nay, and what it might look like, maybe.
I fear the repetitiveness of playing the same teams all the time. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of soccer where you have, yes, some teams in your division that we're going to play once or twice throughout the year, and that consistency, but not, I don't, Connor, do you want to see Orlando versus Atlanta, 9 times a season? Because if we did divisional, like it's literally, it's going to be Orlando, Miami, Charlotte, Nashville just playing each other all year until then you get into playoffs where you're able to play, somebody who comes out of another division. For me, I think you've then just reduced your league down into a 6 team league. Like, yes, you're part of MLS, but the actual teams that you're going to see is just the same teams all the time. So I personally don't think that's enjoyable. I think if they had 64 teams in the league, I'd be like, yeah, sweet, that's awesome. Like we have a massive league and we can have divisional soccer where I've got 10 teams in my division and we've got a good amount of teams to play. But with the way we only have 30 teams at the moment, you split it into 4 or however you do it, I just think there's going to be too many games played against the same opposition and it's going to get a bit tiresome in my opinion. Other people think it might accelerate like rivalries, but I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that's just kind of them forcing rivalries in some ways.
Interesting, Connor. Your thoughts?
I promise I'm not just doing this to be nice, but
I agree with John because I can't have a natural opinion on my own. Is that what you're trying to say?
He
Because
wants to
that's
see Atlanta every.
he does. He just wants to be. He brought the scarf out, and I'm telling you, like you might be able to just say that you converted into an Orlando fan now because that's just what he is. He just agrees with everything Orlando says.
That's not true at all. But I do agree with what John is saying here. I absolutely am on board with not wanting to see Atlanta play Orlando 4 times a year, watch them play Charlotte 4 times a year. Like I love, as John said, I love being able to see them play a variety of teams. And I think you when you go into divisions, you threaten to go years without seeing your team play certain teams in the other conference. Like you could go years without seeing Atlanta play LAFC. Like you could go, I mean, quite frankly, you could go years right now without seeing them play each other,
And
just
we
considering
do.
how many teams are in. Yeah.
And we do. Yeah.
And if you introduce divisions, you're talking about probably even a longer stretch of time because you're most likely going to play the teams in your division more often. And the schedule's congested enough as is, you can't add more games to make up for the fact. You can't be like, okay, we're going to play more games in the division and we're going to add more games so that you can play more teams in the Western Conference. You just can't. There's too much going on. So I think if you introduce divisions, now you're talking about teams playing other teams way less often, which I think kind of takes the fun out of it because it's hard enough to like kind of keep tabs on every single team and watch every single being able to like watch every single team across an entire season. Like it's easier to just kind of follow one team and then you can get a view of like how a certain team or player is playing when they're coming up against your team. So it's like if I want to see Denny Bouanga play, but I'm an Atlanta fan, or maybe that's a bad example because they're kind of around the same time. But just a
Yeah.
general idea. Like if I want to see Denny Bouanga play and I'm an Atlanta fan, I'm watching Atlanta week in, week out. If I don't ever get to see them play at LAFC, I may not necessarily watch Denny Bouanga play. But if he's playing against Atlanta, now I'm guaranteed to see Denny Bouanga play. But
Well,
it could be such a long period of time between when Atlanta and LAFC play each other that you may not even ever see Denny Bouanga play. If he comes here for 3 years and then he leaves, it's like, oh well, then I never even really got to see him play outside of like highlights.
oh
So
yeah. Well, you can
I
you
think
can use that
division's a bad
example.
idea.
You can use that example right now, right? San Diego's on an absolute tear in the Western Conference. I think I've seen them play a half a game of soccer because it's
Yeah,
just I can't stay up that late because I'm old and I can't do that. But also I have no drive to watch them play in Austin or anything like that. Now I will watch them on 360 because I just have it on the background when I'm doing other things. But I don't sit down and naturally just watch them for individual players or things like that, which is a fault of my own. I understand that, but one of the things
right.
I'll say,
But if they were playing against Red Bull, you would see them play
no,
and you get
absolutely,
to
and
watch
and
them.
what I'll say is I agree with you, and so long as a player like Lionel Messi is in this league, you're never going to see this happen. Because the idea of taking away Messi revenue from Western Conference teams because you're going to say, oh, we're only going to play East and West, the Western Conference people who all signed off and said, yeah, he can have some Apple money, are going to lose their minds. So not ever going to happen. But to me, I'd say I would entertain it. I won't go to say that I'm going to love it or I'm going to hate it because it really, really depends on how they set it up. So to your point, John, and I guess to Connor's point too, because he's just John's echo at this point, they can get this really wrong. If you set up divisions, you can get it so wrong in the game of soccer. Absolutely here to come out and say that. Not I don't think it's a hot take at all. But if they get it right, I think it's really, really exciting. And kind of John, to your point, what I was alluding to before was the idea that this could be our first foray into conference and conference alone, right? You go in and we've been talking for a year and a half now about schedule congestion and schedule congestion. 15 and 15. You play everybody home and away once. You get 28 games, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. You play, right? There's your playoffs, or cross, right? 1 and 8, 2 and 7, 3 and 6, whatever. Then what does that bring you down to? 32 games. You're playing 34 plus playoffs right now. Everybody in Europe is playing 28 to 30 plus their conference games, right? or their cup games and their league games. That opens up the door to go back into US Open Cup fully. That opens the door to keep Leagues Cup in where it's at. Doing it this way opens up a lot of doors to go back to what I'm going to use in air quotes as normalcy, right? The idea that you can go back to being what you used to be, which has driven off some people from some of the things you're trying to do. So if they do it that way, all for it. And the divisions, if you want to tell me that you're going to make it instead of home and away, you're going to play the divisions home and away twice, you know what? I'm okay with that if they can do it the right way. If you're telling me you're going to play home and away 3 times and then, like the NFL where you'll play home and away, and then your other 8 games are made up of just 8 random teams, no thanks. Don't need that, right? That is not for me. But if you're going to tell me that you're going to make it up and say, okay, let's say, because that'll bring it up to 30 games, I think, total, right? It's 2 home and away, so that's 8 from the conference plus the other 10. Home and away would be 20, so 28 to 30 games, give or take, right? Then you go into the playoffs, what we were just talking about. I think that's great. You're opening up 4 game weeks, right? 30 from 34 or 28 from 34, 46 game weeks. All those midweek games that are brutal to watch and brutal to get to if you're going to see them in person, they all go away, right? That opens up US Open Cup. That opens up Leagues Cup if you want to go back to putting it in midweek. Whatever it may be, it opens things up. Or it just reduces soccer fatigue. Connor had a what I'm going to call a hot take where we were talking about the Club World Cup and why the attendances were relatively low. And it was because we've been watching soccer for 2 years straight. We haven't had a break. We've watched the Premier League, then to MLS, then to the World Cup, the Gold Cup, this, that, the other. It's like, I'm just tired. You open up all these game weeks, you have days in between just to relax and not have to worry about it, which is, I think, a really big thing. So I'm not out here saying I would love it or hate it, but I would entertain the idea on paper to see how they would do it before I would jump and say yes or no. So there's my on the fence moment. Connor, go ahead, clip it for you.
You would be in my mirror there, Andrew, because I would definitely want to say that as well, that the Open Cup, they have to figure out how to give it its own weekends. Like they have to fix the Open Cup when they make this change, whether it's, the calendar change, divisions, all this stuff. Give Open Cup a real chance to have its own weekend. Don't play it on, a Wednesday night, and give it some actual support and help and make it a real thing, because I feel like it's just never had that love. And look, Soccer United marketing, all this money coming in, maybe finally time to spend a little bit more on the Open Cup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and like I said, we've always been on the idea that Open Cup and Leagues Cup can coexist. This is not a one or the other thing. You can make it work, and this is, I'm taking it out of Connor's mouth here, but you can make it work. It happens, but you need to do it the right way, right? And if that means instead of taking out the and it'll never happen because of who's in charge, but if it means instead of taking out those midweek games for the 4 games that you're going to make up, you take them out on the weekends and put Open Cup that way, go for it, right? If you can find out a way to make that work. I doubt it, because that's not how the powers that be have focused on it. But I'm all here for it, because I think it opens us back to normalcy is how I'll end that. But we have been going for quite a while here, so I want to finish up with the one topic here, and this has been phenomenal, John. Thank you so much for joining us. But